Media Essential Workers, thank you for joining us. This is going to be a very interesting conversation. Hopefully, we've been profiling a lot of people in sports, or we're going to continue to do so to talk about their experiences. Again, going from a situation where work had completely stopped, where there was nothing going on and a lot of uncertainty as to what they were doing, into a situation where there's a lot of work, but again, it's hard to describe how that work's going. Sometimes it's in a bubble. Sometimes it's with different working situations. So we're trying to explore what our people in sports are going through. It was interesting because we talked to a couple of people, but some people described the phenomenon of being depressed working in the bubble because it's almost like a minimum security prison. Nobody wanted to complain because they were grateful to be working. But again, it's the psychological toll you don't think about. I'm Raza Siddiqui. I'm joined by my friend Cesar Rodriguez. A lot of people that we've worked together know you. What have you been up to, my friend?
Raz, pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invite. Yes. It's great to be back and working with you. I know you're definitely one of those photographers that I tell my wife about. My wife, I would always tell her all our adventures and stories with the different photographers, and without a doubt, you're one of those individuals. So, I appreciate everything you've done for me, what you're doing for union rights and making sure that our employees in the business, in the industry, and across different sectors are being respected, and they're receiving those rights, or those companies are respecting those rights. So again, it's a pleasure. I've been away from the industry. I've been doing public relations. Okay. Went to the dark side, but no, I love it. Because I originally started in public relations at a really young age, right in college, actually. In a boutique public relations company, David Corderman Associates. Mm-hmm. And we were a small firm, but we were handling some big names. Gary Chico, who ran against then Senator Barack Obama, and handling public relations, marketing. So from a really young age, that became just a passion of mine, something that I felt that I was really good at. And I was studying broadcast journalism at the time
at U of I. We are both U of I
graduates. Yes. Even though we never saw each other or met, we were in we were there at the same time. So that's awesome. But yeah, that's what I was doing when I was working for CBS 2 as a freelance reporter. When COVID hit, it obviously changed the dynamic and the perspective for all of us. So I decided that, as a family man now, there was other opportunities in public relations. And I said, why not? It's something I love, something that I'm passionate about. And you're still connected to media some way or somehow. So an opportunity came by and I took it.
Well, let me ask you this. You had been in television news for a while, right?
Correct. Yeah.
What was it like to make that transition? Was there a sadness? Was there an excitement to try a new challenge?
Sure.
To be able to even land a job during when we have pretty unprecedented economic changes going on. Again, we started this because we were profiling and helping our sports freelancers who were kind of in between work. Is kind of a feat in and of itself. So you were very lucky to have gotten that opportunity. Was there sadness or was it more excitement, or walk us through your frame of mind?
Definitely, Raza. Number one, I'm blessed just because, like you said, you receive a job during this pandemic. A lot of people, a lot of our friends and family members were losing jobs. So I think that situation really helped me have a perspective that was optimistic.
Okay.
And again, because of my faith, I did see it as something that was, an opportunity that came to me. And I'm so thankful. Yes, there was sadness in regards to not changing industry, just because, again, I had that experience and I'm so passionate about journalism, but I'm also very passionate about public relations. And for me, it's like my baby. My second baby. Huh. But I was sad to let go or go away from my colleagues, photographers, all the minicam crew. Yeah, like I said, the adventures that we had, because I did see him as that. Every time we would get our assignment, go out there, and it was something different. It was a protest. I know you and we did several protests when President Trump was elected, and in those types of events, they're memorable. You'll never forget about them.
You'll never be able to replicate them, and
No.
you'll never be able to know what you're headed into when you head into work. That's one of the things, it can be frustrating, but can also keep you very well engaged, is that you walk into a different situation in the journalistic line of work every day. You never know what you're going to walk into, what kind of climate you're going to walk into, and you work with your creative partner to make sure that you tell a story that is informative.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I miss most, Raza. Just having that chemistry, being there so long and developing that relationship with, the crew in Telemundo, the crew, then later the crew with, from NBC. That's something that you take with, and I think that's what I miss most, like having that camaraderie. And that's something that I don't see in other industries, even public relations, because you're not as close. You're not there working with a person hand in hand.
And trying to problem solve, like
exactly
trying to figure out, okay, something went wrong.
Troubleshooting.
Exactly. It's not a formula like everything else. We got to figure out together how to overcome whatever challenge we're faced with.
Definitely. And I think that, those types of experiences, that's something that I'm always going to talk about. That's going to be like my conversation when I meet, when I meet friends, or I see my old buddies from NBC or from Telemundo or from CBS or Univision, just because, again, I met so many people from different stations, and you build that relationship. You're out there, outside City Hall waiting to get an interview, or you're waiting outside CTU office for hours, or again, you're at a protest. And again, you don't know what's going to happen, but you feel a level of comfort, a level of security, because individuals like yourself are with you, and you're kind of, man, I have no idea what I'm going to do. But, Raza or Mario or Roger, they have this experience, or we can put our experience together, and it's going to turn out. So
exactly. We're able to color the technique we're going to do collaboratively, because, again, there is that safety and also that challenge in working with someone and trying to figure out how are we going to overcome this? What's the obstacle? So if you're just tuning us again, I have Cesar Rodriguez. I'm Raza Siddiqui. We are at some point going to talk to Jim Boring III, who it's very interesting. He's one of those guys who came upon and really kind of challenged me as a union leader to be like, hey, are you making sure that you are reaching out to the union guys who are in sports who need a lot of assistance right now? And the interesting thing is, if you know anything about this show, that's initially what started. We were trying to educate a lot of people on unemployment. However, the failing that we had was we didn't reach everyone we could. So Jim was one of those guys who I feel held us accountable, feet to the fire. And that, in my mind, is just so important. Someone who steps out of their comfort zone. I see that we have Jim now. We're going to patch him through. Jim, can you hear me?
I can. How are you?
I'm doing well. Jim, I want you to tell everyone who's watching, tell my buddy Cesar here, how it was that we started communicating, because it's a story I wouldn't have envisioned in a million years, but I'm glad it worked out as it did.
Yeah, I'm glad it did as well. Well, I mean, we became friends on Facebook, through the business and whatnot. But a couple of months into the pandemic, the shutdown, at least as far as sports is concerned, I had been sitting around with sadly nothing to do, and I had noticed one of your telecasts, and it was a little unnerving that that no one, many of my friends in the industry, in the sports industry, and that, and I know an enormous amount of people no one had been reached out to during what at that time had started the riots and I shouldn't say riots, the protests, followed by some of the riots. And there was obviously a need for extra crew.
Jim, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Let's paint a picture for people. Let's talk about what your industry was like. I've heard this saying, it might be common in your industry. Well, at least there'll always be sports. Now, that is something to say that if work slows down in the freelance industry, there's always going to be some sport that you can perhaps freelance for. There's going to be work there. Mm-hmm. That wasn't the case when this pandemic started. This was a situation where there was a complete wipe down. Tell me from, I don't know, the month before March to March, how your world as a freelancer who's been doing this professionally, how it changed. Just let us all know what happened.
Well, I mean, I don't think anyone really envisioned, I was pretty busy the month prior. My February and up until we got let go, I happened to be at TPC working with NBC for the Players Championship golf. And when we got word that they were shutting down, and then one sport after another was shut down.
So I've talked to a couple people. You might know them, you might not. Tell me if you do. Cindy Marie, Darren Pierce, any of those names ring a bell?
Yeah.
And whether or not they do, I'm imagining, you said yes, but I'm imagining the experience was pretty similar. This is how they described it. They have a calendar. They have a certain amount of days filled, this sport here, that sport there. I know you do quite a few things, golf, NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, tennis. If one thing moves or shuts down, you have something else. Unprecedentedly, a cascade of just cancellations. Yeah. Is that about right?
That's exactly what happens. Happened.
What I understand is some companies initially did the right thing, paid people the contracts, and paid them out as much as they could, trying to do the right thing under an uncertain circumstance where they didn't know where the world would go. I'm sure there was anxiety with this because, again, they don't know, you don't know, you're set for a little bit of time. Mm-hmm. Describe the feeling you had and what the coworkers, the colleagues you've talked to. Paint a picture of your emotional state at this moment.
It was honestly pretty scary. I have three sons, two of which are grown, and I have an 8-year-old at home. And trying to take care of the family and not knowing, being at a certain comfort level, and then suddenly it was gone. And there's that buffer time. Some of those companies did, take care of us for a certain period of time. And for everything that they've done, for me, it happened to have been Golf Channel and NBC in a way. And, it was greatly appreciated. But that only lasts so long. And then for the first time, I'm 58. For the first time since I was in my early 20s, like many people, I went on unemployment. It was tough.
Cesar, weigh in on this because this was the experience in sports. Our friends in news faced very similar things where there was a somewhat of a stability in work and that was changed. Let's dialogue about the similarities of the experiences that sports and news went through. Just anything you can share about what colleagues experienced and what programs were out there. Just anything just to paint a picture.
Sure. Just like Jim, I think that you saw that in news. I mean, I was a freelancer at CBS. I knew the other freelancers. And when COVID-19 hit, I mean, the time that you were being called was just dropped. Some people were being called in 4 or 5 times a week. When COVID-19 hit, they weren't being called. So, I mean, it's an impact across the board. And I think we all felt it, no matter if it's sports or news. But something that I think that I want to mention to Jim, I have a lot of friends, lifelong friends, who worked at ESPN Deportes, ESPN. Mm-hmm. And prior to COVID-19, they were going through this phase. I don't know if NBC Sports was also going through this, but they were cutting newscasts, they were cutting shows, they were cutting talent. A lot of talent was working from home. They were, given a camera, given lights. And again, this was happening, I want to say before December of last year. And a lot of buddies of mine decided to leave the industry just because, again, they saw what was in the horizon. And, so I think this was the COVID-19 came and it was just like a roundhouse kick to the stomach to an already suffering industry like sports or news?
Mm-hmm. I would, you know, I can't disagree. In our world, it seems like, you know, they're always looking to make cuts. They're always looking to work on their budgets. I know that, many of my clients were looking to make major cuts. So, you know, you can see it coming. Fortunate enough, I've got some tenure, and I pride myself in working as hard as I can all the time. And so, you know, I all I can control is you know, what I can control. So,
Jim, I'm going to ask you this. You're talking about what you can control. I'll tell you one of the things that really resonated with me. A lot of people complain, right? A lot of people say, hey, I wish people reached out to us. I wish this happened. I wish that happened. Very few people actually put their neck out there and speak up, not only for themselves, but for all these other people who need a voice. And again, that's how we met. You said, hey, listen, these are some failures. What motivated you at that point to kind of stick your neck out and be like, hey, this is something that needs to be rectified, recognized, and repaired? And made you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to be a voice for this. I'm going to make sure that my buddies are given that opportunity to get this out there.
but yeah, you know, after sitting at home and for such a long period of time, you know, not knowing what the future is, you know, it's you start to lose your wits at a certain point in time, and you know, you could see around at that, you know, during the protests, which are still ongoing, but during the protests when they started, it looked as though things were getting busier, and I could see, you know, some action and some need, you know, for more personnel, and yet it was so quiet. And it was quiet for many of my fellow sports or entertainment cameramen. And so that's why I sort of, I guess, lashed out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so appreciative you did, because again, when that attention is brought, then there's recognition that, hey, there's a group that we need to reach out to. And actually, I do want to give a group a shout out, the Live Events Coalition. There are still a fair amount of people who are out there who are without work. We call them, or they're called Phase 5, I think, workers, which are essentially people who need us to move into Phase 5 to get their industry back. These are people, and I have talked to so many of them, who tell me, I don't want to be on unemployment. I'll take a pay cut. I'll do whatever. I want to go back to work. You know, work for a lot of people is meaning. It defines what they do. Yeah, you know, it gives them a place to go. And I want to keep in mind that there is legislation that's designed to help these Phase 5 workers. You can find out more at the Live Events Coalition. But again, these are people, aside from our sports people, who, again, need that assistance. So thank you again, Jim, for bringing that up. Because it's something that we all need to recognize that there are still people out there hurting.
Oh, you know, just because I purposefully am sort of avoiding, in a way, what I am doing day to day and week to week on Facebook, because I don't want to put it in other people's faces that I'm fortunate enough to now start up again. I care very much about the industry and the other people. And it's tough. It's not easy. I was there, you know, other people were working and I wasn't. And it was tough. I did not want to be on unemployment. I wanted to be working. You know, the amount of unemployment income, you know, as appreciative as I am for it, I want to get back to doing what I've done for, you know, as a career for over 31 years.
Because we want to inform people, we don't ever want to put something in people's face, but kind of tell us about some of the work that's returned for you and what the challenges, the different working conditions are, safety-wise, everything else, just because I think it's important to have this dialogue about how working conditions in the world has changed. Like I said, we talked to people in the bubble who are working, but describing it as like a situation of isolation, being in a hotel. I know you're not in a bubble, or are you? Tell us a little about your working situations.
Well, you know, the client, you know, expects you to abide by the rules, abide by, you know, bubble-ish type of environment. When I started again, I do an enormous amount of golf, and some of my shows, some of the major events, we would test prior. We would test while we were there. We would test if anyone around us, became infected. Um, so, but it hasn't been every show. It hasn't been, every time we go into a place or not. So there's a lot of, trusting of your coworkers, and that's a very dangerous way to go. I'll be honest. For myself, I try to, as best I can, stay isolated. I go to work, do my thing, go back to the hotel. Many times, almost 80% of the time, just eat something that I make in my own room. So it is what it is until we can get, through all this. I'm doing the best I can for both me and my family, moving forward, and my coworkers, for that matter.
So, Jim, what states are you working in right now? Are you working cross country, or?
I've been all over the country. From spent a couple, multiple weeks in Arkansas, which is a hotbed.
Mm-hmm.
I just got a little while back. I got back from New York. I got back from the Dominican Republic. I got back from, just all over. I'm on my way tomorrow to Vegas.
Little boxing in Vegas?
No,
Yeah, joking.
More golf.
Well, you know what is funny? I got the date wrong for one of our shows, and I called Jim. I'm like, "Hey, Jim, you ready to go for this show?" Sarah, why don't you pop up very similarly where Jim was when he called me, because he had a very valid reason for why he couldn't join, and I want our viewers to see kind of the working conditions that he sometimes finds himself in. Sarah's going to pop this up right now, and you kind of explain, as you see this picture, Jim, what it is that you do.
Okay. Well, I don't see the picture yet, but I'll just oh, there we go.
Oh, look at that! Look at that! Reach for the moon, Jim. Yeah. Always reach for the moon.
I am. I work an enormous amount of time. I would place 70% of my time up on a crane. That particular picture is a similar cage to what I work in, but I work on a crane that is about 125 feet in the air. So I'm the guy high in the sky trying to follow the ball as best I can.
Now, how do you do that? like, how are you so good about following the ball? Because I've tried on golf in my capacity of news. I'm trying to be a follow camera. I just can't do it. Sorry, you can punch that off.
You know what? I can only say that I enough times doing it and enough practice. And it's one thing doing it in calm conditions, another thing totally doing it in high winds and rain and whatever else. But my son can annihilate me, and I cannot make it in more than 30 seconds on something as simple as Roblox, but follow a golf ball. So, go figure.
Hey, Jim, just talk to us about the psychological aspect. How has it changed for photographers in the industry? You mentioned that, you're in New York, you're in Dominican Republic, and you have to kind of keep that isolation in your own room, maybe. How does that affect you as an individual? Because I know at home, in the office, it affects me.
Well, it wears on you. It's been a long run so far, and it's it makes it tough. I mean, I can't tell you how many of my coworkers and my family and everybody just wants to get out, become normal again. And but things could be a lot worse, and for some people it couldn't be any more worse. Yeah. So you do the best you can.
Let's talk about the industry going forward, because again, we were talking about companies doing things the right way, but they're also looking to see how things can change. Some of these things may stay, some may not come out. There's a vocabulary in our industry called I think, is it Remy in the sports world, where you can kind of do things remotely, and sometimes the consequence of which in the news industry it's automation, seeing how things can be done with less personnel on scene. What's the concern with you guys, Jim?
Well, there's you have to adapt quite a bit, as you know, with Remy's. For us, you know, everything's delayed. You have to be, you know, where you react suddenly to a director's voice and their commands. You know, with a Remy, things are somewhat delayed, and you have to be on your toes on following the instruction prior to the show, and stay with it. You know, the manpower as well. I mean, you can see how, you know, the companies are looking to cut their costs, and their costs include travel and everything else. And I think it's honestly a sad note for the industry, because I think that the product being put out is becoming less and less. I think, you know, it's amazing what we've done during these times, but the Remy's have been now around for numerous years, and I think those shows, we're just throwing program on TV. I don't, you know, it's not what it used to be.
And just piggybacking off that, you know, it's a domino effect. This COVID situation has affected the entire world. Industries, the sports world has been affected. You know, even when I watch soccer or football, it just doesn't have the same feel. And you know, I'm sure that teams and these sports institutions are being affected. You know, at the end of the day, money talks. So how do you think this is going to transform sports, how we view it through your lens, you know, how it's played, even how players are protecting themselves on and off the field?
I mean, the second aspect of that, the players, I'm not so sure. The first aspect, I just think that there's so much programming out there now. You know, you can have ESPN 19. It's just, you have so much stuff that they're just throwing at it, and it's not, you're not getting the same, I believe, in my opinion, the same quality, you know, because you have so many Remy's. I've been on, you know, shows, and the director doesn't even know, you know, even though they have a list of my name and whatnot. If you don't make eye contact with someone, and there isn't some interpersonal communication,
right,
you're not gonna get the same quality. And so if you just want to throw anything out there, you know, there's people are gonna bite, people are gonna buy it, you know, but it's, you know.
But at what cost, right? Because again,
Yeah.
when you do this, there's pride. I mean, you've done this for a numerous amount of years. You can follow a ball. You could easily get someone who can do the work, but not at that skill level. And there's something to be said for the skill and getting the right person for the job.
Well, we in my personal part of the industry, in golf as it is, we saw what that change is when sadly I had to go to a strike line. You know, something I never wanted to ever do in my career. But you know, you saw what it's like to, you know, you have people out there that don't normally do it. And to be honest with you, if I was to go to do, try to work some news coverage, I'm sure I would struggle at first. But in time, if my mind is right and I'm willing to give the effort, I have spent my entire career first, you know, working as hard as I can and having people help me because of what I consider to be a strong work ethic. And I've always tried to, in turn, help people as much as I can whenever they ask. Um, and I think that, given the opportunity, I think I could have at least um, been sufficient and a help in the other industry. But
Jim, I'm going to ask you this. In terms of labor union relations, I guess I would, pardon the pun, be classified as middle management. I try to be a liaison between what's happening and the guys in the field. This is the way I've found to do it, to use technology to communicate with people when we're socially isolated and whatever else. But I've given you a forum here, and I would like to know if you could plead your own case and those are the people that you work alongside of and get a message out there. What would that be?
I would say just don't give up. Keep keep trying, keep reaching for a hand, because our industry is trying to help. I think that freelancers in general, in all aspects, I think we all feel bad for one another, and I think we all want to help each other. Don't give up. You can't give up. This is a crazy time, but just don't give up. To find something to do to push on. But and then for those of you that are fortunate enough to have the opportunities, don't hoard your work. Don't hoard your knowledge. Try to reach out. This is a time to help people, not a time to protect yourselves.
Well, and I think it's very important to point out that people that are stepping up and helping the people in their industry. We talked to Larry Lage, a gentleman with the Associated Press in Michigan, who's created a grant to help people. He did this when the pandemic started to help funding with people who needed it.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah, remind me, Tim Toast Rucker and his partner in Texas were doing something similar. I'm forgetting the partner's name, and I don't want to do that. I want to give him due credit. But again, there are people who are stepping up, who are trying to help their friends. And I think it's paramount to mention that within our industry, the Chicago Headline Club came up with grants to help people. And I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about the people who are out there trying to do what they can to help their people, help their friends, help their colleagues.
And that initiative from the Headline Club helped reporters and journalists like myself who, again, were placed in a situation because of COVID that no one wanted to be in. So thanks to them, that was a glimmer of hope that allowed us to evolve as a professional or as a journalist and find different opportunities, just like you mentioned.
Yeah.
So I think that is a very important point. Whatever it is, if you're an individual who has faith, if you focus on what needs to be done and not lose hope, just like how you said it, I think that's so important. And again, it's easier said than done, because again, we have, some of us might have families, some of us might have responsibilities, bills, and that again, that's easier said than done at the end of the day. But if you really stay focused and strong internally, I think that's so important.
Yeah, and we got to help each other out. Again, that's why if you're watching this, if you're seeing our guys in sports slowly returning to work, remember, for those that are, there are still a lot of people who need help, who, if you can help them, people in events. I'm sorry, you were talking, Jim?
No, there's a lot of people. I'm fortunate enough to be back, but there's, who knows when that's going to end again, if it's going to end again. But there's an enormous amount of people that are still sitting at home for any number of reasons. And yes, we desperately need people to help each other as much as they can in a lot of ways.
Jim, I can't thank you enough for being a voice for the people who needed help and continuing to be a voice for people who still need that voice, that forum. I'm going to invite you to, if anyone wants to share their stories, because you're more in touch with these guys than I am. I have traditionally always been in the news aspect of things. But one of the things when we had conversed was we never want to be in a situation where we're pitting sports against news. We want to make sure that we are all one collective family, because at some point news is going to hurt. At sometimes sports is going to hurt.
Yeah.
Very limited skill set, and we need to be looking out for each other.
Yes, I completely agree. I completely agree.
Well, so Sarah, do you have a question?
No,
Scott Daly.
Scott Daly.
Scott Daly.
And I am so sorry, Scott, that your mind that you had escaped my mind for a second. But Scott was paramount and instrumental, along with Tim Toast Rucker, in putting together this grant. Which it's interesting. This is prior to the pandemic. If people were injured on their work, if they had come to a disease or some misfortune with their health, these guys have put together a grant to help these people. And it's only actually through doing these televised seminars where someone was like, you should reach out to them. We talked to them. We have an earlier episode with them, but I just want to put a spotlight on these guys who are stepping up and doing the right thing for their coworkers, for the extended family. Amazing
work.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And amazing work for you for putting a voice to some of the problems that are out there. And we know we caught you in a hiatus between one trip and another. I know you're flying out there tomorrow. So I really thank you for taking some time away from your family to at least speak with us and give us your experience. Leave us with something. Tell us a message. Tell us what you want to get out there.
I just want people to, just remember, that they just need to keep moving forward. Stay as safe as you can, but keep moving forward and take care of your fellow workers. Whether it's by following whatever rules we have to put up with right now, or doing whatever it needs to be done. We all need to try to stay safe as possible, and take care of our families as best we can, but don't give up, and look out for your brothers and sisters.
Said perfectly.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jim, for joining us.
Amazing.
Thank you, Cesar, for joining me here.
Invite.
I do want to remind people we are socially distant.
Yeah.
That's why you see us on the on these ends here. We're trying to do everything responsibly as well. But Jim, Cesar, my lovely wife Sarah, for
Thanks,
helping
Sarah.
produce
Appreciate
this.
it. You're the best.
We thank you all, and we thank you for watching. And we want to keep this dialogue going again because we're dealing with something unprecedented, and we want to make sure that nobody is left behind. We want to make sure everyone has a voice and that we're able to address the needs as many as we can. Jim, thanks again, buddy.
Thank you.
Have a good one, Jim.
You too.